Welcome to Digest Discussions, where every episode brings the pages of knowledge to life. Dive deep with us into the heart of academic excellence, where the latest blog posts from Doctoral Digest aren't just read, they're explored, questioned, and expanded. In this podcast, we peel back the layers of complex topics, offering doctoral candidates and scholarly enthusiasts a seat at our roundtable of innovation, where we guide new doctoral students and dissertation warriors through the often confusing world of academics.
Today we're diving into something that honestly transformed my entire approach to presenting research, data visualization. And I have to say, this topic hits close to home because I remember being that graduate student staring at spreadsheets thinking, how on earth am I going to make this interesting?
Oh, I can absolutely relate to that feeling. There's something almost paralyzing about having all this incredible data and knowing it could change minds, but feeling completely lost about how to present it effectively. The article we're discussing today from Doctoral Digest really drives home this point with a statistic that honestly made me pause. Visual data increases understanding by 400%. 400%!
That's such a staggering number, isn't it? But when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. I mean, our brains are wired to process visual information so much faster than text. The article mentions how we often just throw numbers on slides and expect our audience to follow along. But that's not how human cognition works.
Exactly. And I love how the piece frames this. It's not just about making pretty pictures. This is about fundamentally changing how we communicate complex ideas. The article talks about transforming static data into dynamic stories. And that phrase really resonates with me because that's what we're really doing as researchers, right? We're storytellers, but we're telling stories with data.
Yes. And speaking of storytelling, let's talk about one of the techniques the article explores. Infographics. I'll be honest, I used to think infographics were somehow less academic, less serious. But the research shows that 60% of users are more likely to retain information when it's presented visually. That's not frivolous. That's strategic communication.
I had the exact same bias. It's interesting how we sometimes equate complexity with legitimacy in academia. But think about it. If you're studying climate change impacts, would you rather show your audience pages of temperature data or a clean, compelling visual that shows temperature trends over decades? The infographic doesn't make your research less rigorous. It makes it more accessible.
And accessibility is really the key word here, isn't it? The article emphasises how we need to tailor our visuals to different audiences. Fellow researchers, policymakers, the general public. Each group comes with different baseline knowledge and different needs. A policymaker doesn't have time to wade through dense statistical analyses, but they absolutely need to understand your findings to make informed decisions.
This connects beautifully to something else the article discusses: interactive charts. Now, I have to admit, when I first encountered interactive data visualization, I was skeptical. It felt gimmicky. But there's something powerful about letting your audience explore the data themselves, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. There's a psychological element at play here that I find fascinating. When people can manipulate data points themselves, when they can filter and explore on their own terms, they develop a sense of ownership over the insights. They're not just passive recipients of your conclusions. They're active participants in the discovery process.
That's such an insightful way to put it. And it makes me think about how this applies to geographic data visualization too. The article mentions using heat maps for pollution studies or tracking disease outbreaks. When you can see spatial patterns, when you can watch how something spreads across a map over time, it creates this visceral understanding that tables of numbers simply cannot achieve.
It's funny you mentioned disease mapping because that's become so relevant in recent years. During the pandemic, we all became accustomed to those daily dashboards showing case counts and transmission rates. But what made those visualizations powerful wasn't just that they were pretty, it was that they helped people understand complex epidemiological concepts intuitively.
Which brings us to something really practical that the article discusses: tools for creating these visualizations. Now, not all of us are graphic designers, and traditional design software can have a pretty steep learning curve. The piece highlights napkin.ai as one solution, and what caught my attention was that 93% user satisfaction rating.
Right. And I think what's appealing about tools like this isn't just the ease of use, though that's certainly important, it's the collaboration features. Academic research is increasingly collaborative, And trying to coordinate visualization efforts across team members can be, well, let's just say it can be challenging.
Oh, tell me about it. I've been on projects where we had 17 different versions of the same chart floating around in email. But beyond the practical benefits, I think there's something deeper happening here. When visualization tools become more accessible, it democratizes the ability to communicate complex ideas effectively.
That's a really important point. And it connects to what the article says about bridging the gap between data and decision making. So often in academia, we get so focused on the rigor of our methods and the significance of our findings that we forget about the final step, actually influencing change, actually making an impact.
Exactly. And I think this is where the refinery metaphor from the article really works. Data might be the new oil, but raw data is about as useful as crude oil sitting in the ground. The visualization process is what refines that raw material into something that can actually power decisions and drive change.
I love that metaphor because it also implies that this isn't just an optional add-on to good research. It's an integral part of the research process itself. If we're not thinking about how to communicate our findings effectively from the very beginning, then we're only doing half our job as researchers.
And let's be honest, in today's information landscape, where people are bombarded with data from all directions, effective visualization isn't just helpful, it's essential for survival. If your research can't cut through the noise, if it can't grab attention and hold it long enough to convey your key insights, then even the most groundbreaking findings might never see the light of day.
This makes me think about the broader implications for doctoral education. Should we be teaching visualization literacy alongside statistical literacy? Should data communication be a core requirement in graduate programs?
I think we absolutely should. And not just as an afterthought or an elective, but as a fundamental skill that's woven throughout the doctoral experience. Just like we teach students how to analyze data, we need to teach them how to communicate that data effectively.
It's also worth noting that different disciplines might approach this differently. A sociologist studying urban inequality might rely heavily on geographic visualization, while a psychologist examining cognitive processes might benefit more from interactive charts that show relationships between variables. The key is matching the visualization technique to both your data and your audience.
And that requires a level of strategic thinking that goes beyond just technical skill. It's about understanding your story. What's the one key insight you want people to walk away with? Once you know that, then you can choose the visualization approach that best serves that goal.
The article mentions something that I think is worth emphasizing. This isn't about dumbing down complex research. It's about making complex research comprehensible without sacrificing accuracy or nuance. There's real skill involved in that balance.
Absolutely. And I think there's something empowering about mastering these skills. When you know you can take any data set and find a compelling way to present it, it changes how you approach your research. You start asking different questions, thinking more creatively about what stories your data might be telling.
That's such a great point. It becomes a tool for discovery, not just communication. Normal, and in a field where so much emphasis is placed on methodology and analysis, it's refreshing to focus on the human element. How do we help people understand and connect with our work?
Which ultimately is what we're all trying to do, isn't it? Whether we're trying to influence policy, advance scientific knowledge, or just help people better understand their world, it all comes back to communication. And in an age where visual literacy is becoming as important as traditional literacy, these skills aren't optional for researchers anymore.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something personal. For those listening who might be struggling with presenting their data, who might feel overwhelmed by the technical aspects of visualization, remember that this is a skill that can be learned. You don't have to be a designer to create effective visuals. You just need to be thoughtful about your choices and willing to experiment.
And don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Show your visualizations to people outside your field. If they can't understand your main point within a few seconds of looking at your chart or graph, that's valuable information. The goal is clarity and impact, not complexity for its own sake.
I think that's the perfect note to end on, that this is really about serving your research and serving your audience. When you approach visualization with that mindset, it becomes less intimidating and more purposeful.
Thanks for joining us for this digest discussion. We're the Academic Renegade crew, reminding you that you are not alone in your doctoral journey. Join us for every episode as we break down the Doctoral Digest's most compelling content, bringing expert commentary, critical analysis and a touch of scholarly camaraderie right to your ears. This isn't just another academic podcast. It's a community, an idea incubator, and your weekly dose of scholarly innovation all rolled into one.
Tune in to digest discussions and transform the way you engage with academic literature. Let's start the conversation today.